Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Ross Brothers podcast. Make sure and grab your coffee. Grab your coffee. If you're driving, grab your coffee. If you're in a welding booth, go get a cup of coffee. Kick back, take break. It's break time. It's time to listen to the Ross Brothers podcast. This is the second podcast of the Ross Brothers podcast. We should come up with a name. Is
Yeah,
that the name? Ross Brothers podcast? Maybe we
sounds
should
good to
ask,
me.
maybe we should ask the viewers.
Yeah,
Until let us know in the comments of this video some podcast name ideas for the Ross Brothers podcast. Until then, it's the Ross Brothers podcast. So thanks for being here. In today's episode, we are going to be talking a little bit about how Rodney got hooked up with the TV show. If you've been following along with Rodney's social media, Midstate Welding, and my social media, arosswelding on Instagram, both of those on Instagram. If you've been following here on YouTube, you know that Rodney is a part of a TV show. I am as well. Rodney has been way longer than I have. And so in today's episode, we want to talk about, we want to just fill you in on how Rodney got hooked up with the TV show. How in the world did he go from being a pipeline welder to owning his own business to being on a TV show? I don't know if we'll talk about all that, but we want to talk about Rodney's connection to the TV show, to Cappy. Cappy is the professional builder on the TV show Outside the Line, building outside the lines. Him and his daughter build unique structures um, for customers, their clients in and around the Spearfish, South Dakota area. And actually, in last week's video, if you go to the latest video here on the YouTube channel, you'll see where some behind the scenes footage of the first episode that I got to be a part of. It's called the RV Treehouse. So anyway, we're going to talk about that, and then we'll float right on over into because we'll float right on over into the next episode, which is the Birdhouse Playhouse episode, and we'll talk about how we had to utilize our project management SOP that we put together on the Playhouse because we had a lot going on, and we'll get more into that here shortly. But that's what we talked about in last week's episode was the um, project management SOP. The just talking about project management stuff Rodney and I are learning as we go here. So, um, any other announcements that I can think of? Circle burners. We're going to try to
make
put a
sure.
sale on the circle burners, the Aros Welding circle burners. If you don't know about those, go to the Aros Welding website, arosswelding.com. We have lots of tools there. But one of the customer favorites is the circle burner. So I'm going to try to create a discount code because if you go watch the TV show, you'll see. I think I'm honestly not sure that circle burner may be showcased in the TV show there. So, and if you've been following along on the YouTube channel, you've seen the circle burner. But so we're going to try to put a sale on those, but we'll see what happens. Any other announcements that you can think of, Rodney?
Just make sure you stay connected with our Instagram and Facebook and obviously YouTube here, but to stay up to date with our regular stuff that we're doing here in Midstate, and obviously the things that Austin and I are trying to do together. Um, and so yeah, stay up on the socials on all the platforms, even
Yeah.
TikTok since it's back.
Is it back? Is it
It's
back?
back. It's back.
Kind of short-lived, wasn't it? I don't really
Oh
keep up with
man.
all that. All that's kind of over my head, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like the 90-year-old brother, and Rodney's like the 20-year-old is the way I look at it. Rodney's
Yeah.
more tech savvy, believe it or not. He does all the good editing on Instagram and whatnot. I do this long form video. I can barely run a computer. In fact, before this recording right here, me and Rodney were struggling with technical difficulties because I wanted to record it with both screens up like this. I didn't want it to jump back and forth. And so, anyway, it took us a whole hour. We blocked out an hour for this podcast, and we're an hour and a half into it. But anyway, technical
We're over
difficulty.
budget.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. But just so in case those of you that might be new to uh, us and our relationship and our expertise, I am not tech savvy. I feel like a 90-year-old half the time around this technology, but I'm glad it's here so we can share helpful information with you. So yeah, Rodney, how did you get hooked up with Cappy? How did you meet Cappy? How did that come about with the TV show?
Well,
How did you get on the big screen, my man?
good question. Good question. So how it got started is whenever my wife Brooke and I started going to chamber mixers, and for those of you that don't know what chamber mixer is, it's just where all the businesses get together in the town, and it's a way to promote other businesses. And so Cappy had a new building in town that they had just built, and so they were hosting a mixer, and so we went there just thinking it was just another mixer, and then come to find out, and I had heard of him. He had one episode or two episodes out there before, but as far as the TV show goes, building off the grid. So I'd heard of him. I'd seen him on Facebook and stuff, but long story short, I met him at this chamber mixer, and we got to just conversating, and he does a lot of his own welding stuff, and so just right off the bat, he was like, "Man, I'm looking to, try to sub out more welding stuff so I can do some other stuff." And so he had a staircase for me to build, and so that's kind of where it started. We started just I built a floating staircase for him, and then after that, we kind of actually become pretty good friends out of that. And then one day I think it was whenever he was picking up the staircase, I was just curious, and I was like, "Hey, whatever happened to the TV? You were on that show, like on that one episode, or whatever." I was like, "Whatever happened to it?" And he goes, "Well, actually, we're about to film a new show called, well, at the time they didn't know what the name was, but they were going to shoot a pilot. And a pilot is a test video, so that basically a test episode to see if the network is even going to like the show or not." So he was like, "Hey, do you want to be a part of it? We're going to be welding a shipping container and make it a sauna or whatever." So I was like, "Sure." And that was no guarantee. I mean, I waited all day. Anyways, getting in the weeds of it. But anyways, that's how I got connected with him. We did the pilot, and if anyone has seen the very first episode of Building Outside the Lines, the first season one, episode one, like I was in it for like that. So I was probably there like 5 hours building this little deck and welding the shipping container down. Took a bunch of footage and just for like literally 3 seconds, I think. But that's usually how it goes, though. So that's kind of where the started, and then as once they got the approval, the network loved how I was on camera and how Cappy and I interacted, and so that's just kind of how it kind of kept going. Yeah, so that's how it got started. Was just simply just doing one little test one, um, and then we had moved into the shop, so which right after they got the approval to start the season one, and so that was super handy too, as far as that goes. So yeah, all in a summary.
That's right. That's right. You were in your garage whenever you first met Cappy, because you worked out of your garage for 3 years roughly
Yep,
before you bought this building or
yep.
existing weld shop. I remember I remember you telling me that you were like, "Oh man, Cappy's got to come pick up these steps from my garage. Like, what's he? Isn't that what you were like kind
Yeah,
of worried about what he would think? You're like, man, like this is
self
kind of
conscious.
yeah. He was a little nervous about that, but
Oh yeah. Well, one thing I would like to say for anyone that is watching, that if you are in your garage or if you're in a space, there is a lot of self confidence that goes into presenting yourself when you are working out of the garage, because like ultimately the customer's not going to care where you're at. There is some bigger companies that would like to know that you can perform bigger projects if you have the space for it, but um, just be confident in the work you're doing. Doesn't matter where you're at. Long story short.
It is interesting. That's a whole topic in itself. I don't
Yeah,
know how far down the road we want to take this,
probably not.
but it is but it is an interesting topic because it's the whole concept of like dress for success. Like if you want, and that's something where you and I, as far as that's something we where in another podcast episode we could talk about how the path I've taken in my welding business, which is more out of the garage status, just doing mobile, never took on a, a big welding shop like you did versus yourself, you branded your truck, you got a shop because you were thinking so far ahead and you were serious about this bigger vision of owning a big welding business one day. So you're actually taking steps to attract, like, by doing that stuff, you're attracting that stuff to you. You know what I mean? Because it's like me trying to get a commercial project. Well, I'm not even in the. It's almost impossible until I take certain steps, in my opinion, because looking at a commercial project as a somebody that's managing a commercial project, if I'm looking for somebody to do commercial work, I'm going to look at somebody that can handle it. I'm not even going to look at somebody that just has a mobile welding business. Like they're just not set up for it. So why would I even consider them? You know what I mean? But by doing what you've
Absolutely.
done, you're prepping for those opportunities, but you're having to take chances to get in front of those opportunities. I think that's a great topic to talk about, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Like that's a big deal. And yeah, like but this all goes back to a conversation Rodney and I have had a lot about having a vision. Like I said, Rodney has had this vision of what he wants, which is a big business. And so that right there helps him take these steps more confidently, if that makes sense, because he's working towards something that he's this bigger vision. So it's like it makes sense to take all these steps. So anyway, okay, so yeah, you got hooked up with the TV show from a chamber mixer. That I mean, what are the chances? You know what I mean? Like, what are the chances? That's just, I mean, Spearfish, South Dakota. What are the chances?
Right.
That's crazy, but it's cool.
Well, that's it's one of those things that sometimes opportunity jumps out in front of you and you either got to take the risk and go for it or let it go by and be okay with it.
Yeah, and that's definitely it's definitely the vibe I got from being on TV show behind the scenes is like is which I'm not saying I'm a huge fan, but it is what am I trying to say? There is something to be said for taking action on things that are right in front of you because in the moment it can feel chaotic, but just my experience from being on the TV show and watching what Cappy did with such little plan. We can talk more about Cappy in the future or whatever, but there's this, ongoing joke or thing with Cappy that like he doesn't have much of a plan, which we'll actually talk about in this episode because Rodney and I are, I guess, more perfectionist or whatever, and I definitely am, which is how we come up with that SOP. So whenever you're trying to plan stuff and you involve somebody that's not a planner, it can be stressful to me because I'm trying to. It's a control issue, guys, is what I'm getting at. But anyway, I'm getting in the weeds. I need to get out of the weeds, out of the weeds. I'm in the weeds, Rodney. Um,
Bring her back in.
what I was getting at was there's something to be said for taking action on stuff that's right in front of you, and then you start to see things that come from taking the action. It's crazy how things start to happen. You know what I mean? They just start to fall into place because you're like, oh, you know, I needed like a you needed something, but you didn't even have to look for it. It just found you because you took this last action. You took this one step. Well, this other thing just naturally found you. So it's like there's a lot of power in just taking action on things that are right in front of you, even if it was something you didn't plan. And I say that to say what I experienced from the Playhouse that we're going to talk about today is it was very, very cool to see how Cappy and you knew you were going to build a birdhouse playhouse, but there wasn't, y'all drew up like some of it, like the main deck dimensions, but
Yeah.
there was a lot that was added to it, and it was just cool that like Cappy didn't have to micromanage. It was just cool that like his people that he hired, like Ruby and all them, like I think was it you and Ruby that decided to go down with the roof, you
Yeah.
because it was just going to be like this or something, but we decided to go down instead, or you
Yeah.
all did. And like that was last minute and it took more time, but it was just cool to see how things just kind of fall into place. Because in the moment, whenever you're like for me, from my experience being on the TV show, I sometimes felt like, oh, this is chaotic, like this is crazy, especially whenever Rodney and I were trying to plan. But in the end, it's really, really beautiful how everything just kind of fell into place. So that's all I'm getting at is it's beautiful to watch
Yeah.
how things fall into place if you just trust in,
That's the process.
yeah, trust the process, trust God, your higher power, whatever you believe in. Like it just trusting in that flow of life. You know what I mean? So yeah, how did I get there?
I don't know.
So yeah, Rodney got hooked up with the TV show by meeting Cappy. How did I get hooked up with the TV show besides, besides Rodney, which is a phone call from Rodney. He was covered up last summer, summer of 2024, and been in the shop for a year and a half, roughly. Been in your shop,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he was getting a lot of mobile work and just work in general. In last week's episode, I talked about, he had a page with over 30 projects on the list, and there was, a good uh, 30% or so that were mobile welding jobs. And so I was planning on coming up there for Stella's birthday party, Rodney's daughter, my niece. Um, anyway, but we also knew that I wanted to try to help on the playhouse that was being built because Rodney is a client of Cappy's in the episode that actually just went up yesterday. If you're watching this in the recording of this video, but anyway, and Rodney wanted me to help on it if I could, and it just happened to be that he needed help with service-based stuff, customer stuff, and with the playhouse. So it was just rather than going up for the oh, that's what happened. The date moved because I was only going to be up there for like a
Mm.
couple of weeks for the birthday party and to help with the playhouse. But then the producing team, the the film crew, had to reschedule or something. They had to push something back. So it made more sense for me to be there for like 4 or 5 weeks. So that's what I planned on doing. Therefore, I was able to help Rodney for longer. So that's how I got roped into the deal, is because Rodney needed help. And that is how we learned, like we talked about in last week's episode, about how Rodney and I's strengths could potentially work good together and have thus far. So, um, yeah, we I went up there, helped with a couple of welding projects. I shared them here on the YouTube channel, and a couple of them, not all of them, but and then me and Rodney started, working. Rodney was like, "Hey, man, I need to." Well, we talked about that in last week's episode, but that came in handy whenever we were doing the playhouse, the project status, the project management. We call it the project status SOP. It's just more or less like whenever a project comes in the door, we go to this list. Rodney goes to this list and he makes sure he runs that project through each step in this list. So, and it just helps with communication. It helps with guessing timeline because you have a better idea of how long projects takes. It helps with um, because you have a better idea how long stuff takes. You can communicate that with your customer. You can decide you can whether you should or should not take on a project that comes through the door. Like if it's too big a project and you got, what I mean, not enough help or whatever, or it helps you decide if you need to get more help. It just helps you have more of a pulse on how long stuff takes by running your projects through this list, this status list. So we utilized it on the Playhouse. Rodney, go ahead.
Yeah. So being that we had this SOP already kind of set up, we were able to use it because when the date got moved on the Playhouse to start building it, so Austin and I had sat down and just to kind of help you guys understand how we used it, because I had other projects that we were either been in waiting on that we've been in the process. I'm trying to say here. We've had a couple projects that were just ongoing, and so we had to make sure to work those in here and there. But when the Playhouse come up, and then they moved the date, which was that actually kind of worked out in the grand scheme of everything. But just kind of give you an idea, so this Playhouse involved the main structure, like the deck and what the Playhouse is actually going to set on, and then it involved a staircase, uh, the railing, and then the roof. And so the roof is made out of spindles or like cable spools. And so with that, we had four tasks that we were going to have to work on. And so what we did was we sat down and we looked at, okay, so for this project, as far as estimating, we're just have to figure out labor time. And so that's where with the other projects and with the guys trying to divvy up who was going to do what. And so in that time estimate, we were able to sit down. Austin and I knew that we were going to do the structure. And so we kind of figured it might just to overestimate, what did we say, 3 days, 4 days, I think.
For
And
all of it,
then no, just for the
just
deck.
the deck.
The deck.
Yeah, what Rodney's pretty much saying is we ran each one of those through the list. We took the deck and we we sat down and decided how long it was going to take, more or less, which would be the
Yeah.
which would be the design factor. I really need a visual, or I feel like I do, because
In order to,
I feel like I do. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Because part of
So,
because part of welding projects is a design, and one thing that I pointed out last week in last week's conversation was how a lot of us skip over the design aspect. But what Rodney's saying here is we took we looked at each one of these projects, the deck, the stairs, the handrail, and the roof, and we looked at the deck, and me and Rodney thought, okay, how long is this going to take me and him to build, me, him, and somebody else? Like, how long is it going to take? That way we could plug that into our calendar. And so we did that for each one of those so we could see if it was, possible to get these done in time because we had a deadline. They had a reveal date for this playhouse. So if we wouldn't have done the organization with the SOP beforehand, it would have been more chaotic, I guess. And so it was just helpful. It was helpful to be able to slow our minds down and focus on each project and think about how long each one of those was going to take. And then, like Rodney's saying, put it on one of his guys' to-do list for that week. Delegate this, the handrail to somebody down the shop while me and Rodney can start on the deck out at his house. So
yeah, it was, so having that was super handy because even helped the film crew because whenever the producer called and was like, "Hey, we're thinking about being at your house to start it on this day," and I was able to relay how many days attentively that we're going to need on our part because not only does the film crew got to film this like the welding side of it, but they got to film all the other stuff, and so they're not always there every single minute while filming, but they, either they'll leave a GoPro or they'll leave a camera guy or something like that. But yeah, so yeah, it's super important on the planning. I mean, I guess Austin, should we share a little like kind of on the Playhouse itself, kind of that experience of it?
what do you mean? We can, yeah.
Uh, well,
As
I kind of talk about the TV, like,
so
um,
so because the viewers that are watching right now,
mhm.
the show has already went up, so they've seen it. If you haven't, you can go watch it. But it'd be cool to just kind of give our perspective, maybe is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like because the one thing that you did talk, I mean, because there is the creative factor, like how the roof got put together. Because that was what's crazy is, and we'll get you guys some footage at some point because I don't know what all they're going to show on this. I mean, because at this point we haven't watched it, but
Right.
the shop, Austin, talk about the shop, how Austin was working on the railing at one point. I was working on the stairs, and then Ruby, Cappy's guy, was started the Ruby and Howard, the young man that works for me, that Austin worked with on the railing job on that one video. They were working on the roof trusses, and Ruby is a contractor, and he's used to doing roof stuff. So that was super handy to have him on board to help us out because that's the beauty in doing projects with Cappy. Uh, just a little side note that um, they like we were working like ebb and flow like a team. Like it's I don't know, it's different. It isn't like just using um isn't just like just another contractor. It's like we're coming together to do this thing, and it's going to be beautiful when it's all said and done. Is there a different way you would explain that, Austin? That scenario?
Yeah, I think for me, uh, I think like what I think about whenever you say that, Rodney, is kind of what I was saying earlier about the what's beautiful about Cappy's whole team and everybody working together. I like that community effort. Like it reminds me of being on one of those shows like home makeover or yeah, just where you have a short time frame, and so literally it's like all hands on deck, and it's just really cool to be a part of that. Like you just feel like I mean everybody's doing their special little thing. You know what I mean? Ruby, like you said, was doing the roof on the Playhouse. Dustin stepped in and helped. Obviously, did a lot with the roof there. David, was doing his specialty. He brought that custom ridge cap for the Playhouse.
Yeah.
Oh, and Dustin created those little birds, the smaller. It was like fake, like in the peak. It was like fake little
Oh,
bird houses. Like just adding that little touch. You know what I mean? 'Cause he's a carpenter, so like it was just a little touch that he wanted to add, and that wasn't planned. Nobody said they wanted that. Dustin just did that, and like so it's just magical is the word I would use. Honestly, like it's just magical to see how like in my mind, I just envision Cappy like I, I just thinking of like, okay, I like building these custom structures. Okay, we got a TV show. Well, that adds a whole nother aspect, but it's like it makes sense to me a little bit why Cappy doesn't have a plan or whatever is because it all happens so fast. Like I was talking about at the beginning of this conversation, it's like opportunities were there. It's like, he had the opportunity to be on a TV show, so he was just taking action on it. In the moment, you may not feel like you have time, but it's like he just took action on it and he made phone calls whenever, like, if he lost some help or whatever, he needed some more help, he called and, asked for help and somebody showed up to help. And it's like things just happened because he was willing to accept help and he was willing to take, um, and so it's just, yeah, that's what I think about whenever you talk about, everybody working together. I just think about just how magical it is
yeah,
whenever everybody comes together with their different skill sets, and I mean even down to
yeah.
uh,
Well, and
Ren,
oh
everything,
yeah,
the design, everything, the final product. I mean, there's so many people that are involved that we haven't even talked about yet that make the end result of this. What you see on the TV show. What makes that happen? There's so many hands and talent skills that go into it, and it's really, really cool. Really, really cool to be a part
yeah.
of.
Well, I don't know if they'll show it, but like so Austin just brought up Ren. So in order for us to pick up the roof, so Austin and I decided, and that's the cool part about this TV show is that a lot of it is trying to we do get to be creative, and that's the thing about being around Cappy. He definitely makes you think like, what can I do different that's not cookie cutter? And so because originally we were talking about how we're going to lift the roof is just weld some nuts onto the frame through the roof and then just just put some thread in picking eyes and we'll just hook onto it, it's fine. And then we came up with, because I think I asked Ren if she could draw us a shape of the bird, and
Hmm.
she traced one out, and so we were like, why don't we cut some birds out that'll be permanent, and and so that's the cool part is Austin and I were able to do a little competition. Don't know if it made the episode, but it was cool because Austin and I did a little competition, and then we had Stella come out and be a judge of who cut the better one. Um, and she chose rightly, but I don't know if they ever knew that or not. But uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no, that was um, what was your favorite part of the Playhouse, and out of all the building side of making this unique project for you?
My favorite part of the Playhouse.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Favorite part of the Playhouse. What do you mean? Like outside? You said
It
outside of the building?
honestly, it could be either just in general, just as a project as a whole, or a certain part that you like doing the most, or you like seeing come together.
Man, it's what comes to mind is the everybody working together there the last couple of days. Whenever push come to shove, like for some reason that really stands out to me. But I'm trying to think of as far as anything else that was like my favorite. There was just a lot of it that was really neat because there's a lot of metal work in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, I can think about stuff on the deck that I enjoyed whenever you and I were building it in your driveway. Uh, that reminded me of like welding on drilling rigs. Like how you're in a gravel lot and you're welding on C channel or I beam. You know what I mean? Like that's what that reminded me of. So
yeah.
that was cool. Uh, I mean, we got to use the bevel machine to cut out, the
Oh yeah, I forgot about
the
that.
the pipe that he put in the ground. Uh, that was neat. I just liked the way it I just liked the way it turned out. All of it. You know what I mean? The handrails, how the handrails were different on the stairs than they were on the deck. Um, the roof is obviously super unique and cool. Like um, yeah, I like that. I like that Ruby was involved in the roof. Ruby's not a welder, so it felt good to just be there where he like needed like he's welded before, you know what I mean? Like he's ran a MIG and stuff, so that's why he could do that. But like whenever he was struggling, like that felt good to be again this community thing, like being able to be there to you know what I mean, just like help him with his welding skills, even though he's not a welder. Like it was just cool. It was cool to see him learning from you, you know, how to
Sure.
lay all that out, how to figure all that out. I mean, because that was not an easy. Because not only did it do this number, but it also on one end it it
Oh,
hung over, so there was a whole nother aspect of it. I mean, it was just it's like a what did we call it, or what did I think I used the term?
whimsical
Yeah, flens or wins,
wins.
whimsical,
Whimsical. Yeah,
whimsical, or something out of Dr. Seuss. Is what it made me think of. So
yeah,
I guess the most unique part would be the roof, but yeah, I liked the community aspect, man. I liked that was really cool. I like that.
yeah, yeah. That was definitely when everyone comes together. I mean, heck, on the last day, I mean, Austin was putting the tiles on the deck, and I was helping Cappy either, getting them cut to size. So like even after the welding was done, like we were doing whatever it took to help them, and then they booted me out of there, at the last little bit, or the last day before, so that there was some sort of surprise. But
Do we need to talk about anything else, or can we jump to that? The reveal. How surprised were you?
no, we can jump on it. I do think it, just in case they don't show it about your circle burners, how we got to use it on the staircase, because that
Oh
was
yeah.
pretty cool getting to, you know, because we were sitting there, and that I would call it Cappy effect. We were at dinner and we were like, what can we do with the staircase just to make it just a little different? And then I got to thinking Austin's got a circle burner. And so sadly I don't have one. So um but I've got a circle burner for a plasma cutter, but I can't use it in an I-beam. And that was super handy when Austin was able to use it inside the I-beam. And what we did was we laid out where every single tread was going to go. And then we laid out where the holes were going to go. So then Austin went through and torched out all the holes in the webbing, um, just to give it that little extra
Fun,
feature.
fun. Yeah, it just looked more fun. There's more character to it. I loved that you thought of that. That was a real good idea. Yeah, that was real neat.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, you called it the Cappy effect or whatever, but it rubs off. You know what I mean? Like you just being around people like that allows you to be in that creative state and you have permission to do that. That's what's neat about. That's what I love about Cappy's projects is you're allowed to be creative. You know what I mean? And that's
Hmm.
really cool because on a regular project, you're usually within lines, because you're building it to a certain idea,
Back
a certain design, going back to our list, like you designed it a certain way, so you got to stick to that versus kind of building this stuff on the on the flow, on the
on the
go. Yeah,
fly,
there we go.
on the
Yeah, on
go.
the fly, on the
Yeah.
go. Yeah, it was just I just loved that you thought of that. That was genius because yeah, it definitely added a lot of character to the uh to the playhouse. Yeah, that was good. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's the one thing I do would like to talk about just for a moment is what was it for you to help do this, for Stella? Like, I mean, just, because I, for me, I wanted, it was super awesome to get to do it as, as a dad getting to make something, for Stella, for her. And then obviously, something that as parents, it's cool to be able to say, you get to do something, but what was it for you for Uncle Austin getting to do it, like, because you two are like tight.
Oh, yeah. I think what you're asking is just how I feel about being a part of it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it feels honestly, I've been so overwhelmed and stressed lately with work and other things that I'm glad you asked because this is an opportunity for me to slow down and think about that. And it's really special. It's really special to be able to be a part of that. Especially the older she gets and knowing that I think I think of it. I remember whenever I was a kid, you had aunts and uncles and you remember those memories. So the fact that she's gonna have those memories of Uncle Austin and Dad, and I mean a whole TV show for that matter, like building her building her playhouse, like it's gonna be really cool. So it feels good to be a part of that team that done that. You know what I mean? It really does. That's special. It's a big deal, and I'm grateful to be a part of it for sure. To have been a part of it.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
memories, man. Memories.
Right. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Well, and the fact that you know, we, because at the time of this recording, like, so if you watch the show, I make an announcement that we're expecting our number two uh kid or baby. We're expecting our second. I don't know how to word this. We're expecting another baby, and we announced it on the show. And so, like, as of right now, we're about a month out, give or take. And so I'll be excited once we come up with a name to weld uh his name next to Stella's because Austin and I welded some names onto the bottom of the deck as like our little signatures. So that's super exciting too.
Yeah, that's special. Yeah, for sure. I forgot about that. I'm telling you, I've been way too stressed out lately, but yeah, glad you reminded me. Reminds me of the TV show Toy Story, writing on the bottom of Andy's foot. Yeah,
That's right.
totally. That was cool being able to weld Stella's name up there. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you had asked me about like on the reveal. Um, I know I was definitely surprised. It was, I mean, there's also a level of where, because like what's going on, and obviously being a part of, everything. Um, but I know for Brooke and Stella, like, oh man, Stella was super stoked. Brooke was super excited, and just like because it's one thing to, like you see it come together, but it's like a lot of the other episodes that we've gotten to be a part of. Like you see the beginning stages, but I don't ever get to see the end result until it airs on TV. And so so I'm super stoked to see what this one turns out because yeah, super. I guess I don't know.
So how, I mean, my question was, how surprised were you in real life
Mm.
whenever you come around the corner
In real life.
and you've seen the finished painting, the finished design, like what they do at the end,
So
like
yeah,
how surprised were you?
so on a well, for me, I guess I was probably like a 7 or a 8, just because I kinda already kinda knew, but what did it was how the decorator was his name Josh? And
Yeah,
Rachel,
Josh.
Cappy's wife, they go through and they decorate everything. And so there is a purpose for every plant that you see, every object that is like whenever you see a reveal, everything has a purpose and a place to give that room depth, to give it, everything. I mean, this guy does it for big name, you know, shows and like everything. So seeing all the greenery, all the plants, and all the things together, yeah, I would say I was probably like a 7 or 8, but, trying to have that like, Brooke hadn't seen it at all, like, she made sure that she didn't see anything throughout the whole process, so for her, there was a whole nother, like, you know, a different surprise level.
Sure, sure.
Stella was super stoked, so but yeah. Yeah, no, it was,
That makes
um
sense. I'm just curious how surprised you were. I hadn't even asked you that in real life, but that makes sense.
yeah,
Like you're not
no,
going to be
I
as
mean,
surprised
if
because you knew you were involved in all the building of it. So it's like overall you weren't that surprised, but you would have had to
but I'll
appreciate the design stuff. Or I'm not saying you didn't, but I'm just saying that's where the change was in the design stuff.
right, right. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was definitely a great experience.
So yeah, yeah. I hope you all will go check out the TV show. That's what I hope if you haven't already. It's a good TV show.
Yeah, and
Really
there's
cool.
more stuff coming down the
Uh,
line, and
And I will probably do another behind the scenes of the Playhouse. I don't know if I'll have enough footage for more than one video or not, but I'll definitely create a couple YouTube videos to post here on the channel. For those of you that want to see behind the scenes, we're talking about this TV show. You can go watch the TV show, and then you can watch, the more of the process here on the YouTube channel. The stuff you're used to seeing here on the YouTube channel.
awesome. What we could do is if anyone has those questions, maybe we could answer it in a follow up episode.
Yeah, let them know. Tell them what if they have
Yeah,
questions
yeah,
about
yeah.
what. Tell them.
Yeah, so if any of you guys have any questions on anything on the TV side or anything in the project side of it, or just like anything of that nature, let us know so that we can like because we can make a whole nother episode just answering some questions and try to talk about some of these things because we're conversating about some of this stuff, trying to go back and sometimes we might miss some details or just stuff that we didn't think to necessarily talk about. So hopefully, if there's any questions that we didn't really hit on, or if there's something that you want to know more about,
Let us know
drop them.
in the comments below.
Yeah, and you can also reach out on Instagram or obviously here, but you know, on any platform, I'm more active on Instagram. So if you got a question about it and that you'd like to see on the podcast, go hit me up on Instagram or obviously here, like Austin said, and then but yeah. Now we could talk about the situation where I tried to pressure you into
Oh
doing something
yeah, yeah.
talking.
That's some good brotherly banter,
Oh my
if you
gosh.
will. So Rodney's always had this thing. He done this growing up all the time. He always likes to pressure little brother Austin into doing certain things that little shy Austin doesn't feel comfortable doing. And that's always really frustrating. The older I've got and the more I realize, oh, I have a choice. I don't have to give in to his peer pressure. And so I was in that realm whenever he was setting the post for the Playhouse. He was
Oh,
he was strapping it to his skid steer. He had already drilled the hole, and they were filming the whole thing before, and our trucks were backed up close to it. And so Rodney, being the person he is, he's funny, and the producers know him, and they know his personality, and like Rodney, he thought of something funny, and so he went out there with his measuring tape and measured between the posts that they had standing up and his truck to see if the height of the post, like if it was to fall, if it was going to hit his truck. And so, and then I think Cappy said something to you, didn't he? He was like, oh,
yeah.
are you worried that we're going to drop it or something? You know what I mean? Like it was just naturally part of the show because of you and Cappy's relationship. Me and Cappy don't have that relationship. But Rodney thought it would be funny for me to go do the same thing or something. And the whole other thing and so anyway, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. And I told him like several times, like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm not going to do that. And so finally, it just came up with him. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do it. So I went and did it. And nobody looked at me. Nobody said nothing. I just felt stupid for even walking out there. And so then that just verified to me that like I need to go with my gut. I don't need to be peer pressured by my older brother like I did whenever I was 5 years old. And so it turns out there's even funnier part to this is what I did wasn't even what Rodney was talking about. So I felt even more stupid because
Well,
because you wanted me to check your measurement or you wanted me to
no,
measure.
no, because you went to my truck and did it, and I was like, the
That's
idea
what I.
was for Austin to go measure from his truck to the pole. I measure from my truck to the pole, and whenever Austin went out there, and the producer that was filming had his back to Austin, didn't even look. Cappy didn't even like. I was like, oh no.
Oh, life lessons, man. Go with your gut.
Uh,
Don't be peer
yeah.
pressured. Go with your gut is the lesson I got from that. Yeah,
Then we wouldn't have a good story to talk
that's true.
about.
That's true. Yeah.
That was even in the moment. I was like, "Oh no, they're not looking." I felt bad. I was like, "Oh, I'll just keep my mouth shut."
It is funny. It is real funny. It is real funny. But yeah, go with your gut, folks. Don't give in to peer pressure. Say
Oh
no to
yeah,
say no to drugs.
yeah. Well, another thing, just to help you guys kind of understand, because like Austin and I have worked together, on pipelines whenever we were pipelining, and so there was times where, just brothers be brothers, something, anyways, there was times where I was immature about something, we were working together, working on the same project, and there was times, so just brothers will be brothers is basically all I'm trying to get at. But what was nice whenever he came up and we started working together, it was definitely on a more mature level. And then when like we were at the shop and I remember because so what I learned in this time of like Austin was working on the railings for the deck, and so I was, I've been used to working with employees, and so I'm used to kind of like micromanaging a little bit. and trying to get used to Austin's a self, like, I don't have to babysit him. I just need to give him a couple of pointers, the things that I want, and then just walk away. But I kept like checking in, and then Austin took a soapstone and wrote temporary, and just kind of jotted down. And I'm like, okay, walking away. But I guess I more or less bring that up is just because kind of for anyone that has siblings, some people have great relationships, others may not, and then especially there's other people that can't work with family, and so for us to be able to have little moments like that we kind of laugh about, but it's also respecting each other's lanes or not at times, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I only say that just to kind of help you guys kind of feel a little more connected on who we are when we're around each other, kind of a thing. Is that how you
Yeah.
would explain it, Austin?
It's real life. What you said just now is real life, which is we have our stuff. Even though we're a little more mature, there's still things we're learning about each other, like, and that's real, you know what I mean? You gotta learn about each other and know any relationship really. But yeah, like whenever I hear you talk about, you reminded me of that. Like that's funny, it's funny that like, yeah, it's real. It's real life. We have our things, me and Rodney have our things that we pet peeves about ourselves, or pet peeves that we have, and so yeah, no, totally. Yeah, we have our struggles is all I'm getting at is it takes work. And but I'm thankful that we're in a season of our life where we are a little bit more mature, and we are open to learning from each other, and we're open to listening to each other. I think that's helping our relationship. I think, yeah, I
Totally,
think that's helping our relationship. So
totally,
really,
totally.
really, really cool.
One last thing. Whenever you wrote temporary, I didn't realize till later that you were talking about that panel on that railing was temporary. I thought you were writing that you were temporary, so to leave you alone.
Lot of miscommunication. This is a business topic in itself that Rodney and I have talked about, which is you can't over communicate, in my opinion. If there's anything I've learned over the years about relationships, it's you can't over communicate, because literally there's two instances now that we've brought up, which is the measuring the pole from the truck. Rodney didn't explain the details there. And then same with this, we were interpreting things different, and that's why it's important to ask, things. So anyway, that's a business topic in itself. But yeah, that's funny because I remember you saying that. I was like, no, that's not even what I meant. Because I thought Rodney was coming out there to tell me that this, because we had to build the staircase and the landing for the steps separate, because we were going to join them whenever we got out to the job. And so there was a point where you only needed one post, but I built the handrail with two posts that were going to run into each other. And so I thought Rodney was telling me that, hey, we don't need a post here because, it's already on the rails going up the stairs. I thought that's what he was telling me. And like he just said, he didn't. That's not what he was talking about. So that's funny. Yeah, real funny.
Yeah, yeah,
Communication, baby. It's a big deal in
yeah.
any
Right.
relationship, but especially business, to make things go more well oiled, like I've shared here on the channel before. Is well, I know I talked about it in last week's video about how I'm a fan of well oiled businesses, but it takes a lot of work as I'm learning to get there. It's literally, you got to be conscious of it every single day to try to get there.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. There's definitely a lot to it.
so I guess that's gonna be it. I'm gonna ask one question, unless you have anything else
No,
you
I
want to share.
think, I think, think that covers it for today.
So I'm gonna try to ask this at the end of every episode. What's what's one thing that you can highlight over the last week that you've learned? About business, running your business, or in your personal life? What's one thing that kind of stands out to you?
Last week, well, I would say.
it could be something that you've already learned in life because if there's one thing I've learned,
Yeah,
it's that like I learned it this way 2 weeks ago, but then I learned something about the same thing, but it's
sure.
slightly different. So I just wanted to throw that out there
Well,
because
well,
that's one.
the one thing I would say is one thing that I've learned, even kind of like we were talking earlier, that trying to oh, I'm trying to think how to word this. So one thing that I've learned is that whenever I'm doing office stuff, that I need to delegate some time for shop time, so that necessarily don't get stir crazy just trying to do estimates and stuff like that. Is kind of, you know, putting on a welding shirt and go hang out with the guys, make sure that they don't need anything instead of just trying to do strictly office stuff.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to that. Yeah. And what I hear when you say that is because you use the term stir crazy, so you don't get stir crazy. You need some outdoors time, but it's also good for your guys to be of help, but also just to uh help with the morale, maybe. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep.
Let them
Yep.
know that you're available. You know what I mean? I
Right.
guess it kind of helps with that, but yeah, just that balance of being in the office too much, making sure you get enough outdoors time is the way I interpret that because I've been spending a lot of time behind the computer lately and I've totally had to be intentional about leaving the house.
Yeah. So what about you?
Something I've learned this last week that stands out. Um, hmm. For me, it would be it's kind of a I've been learning a lot about I've been on like this like spiritual journey, personal journey, self-help journey. Excuse me. So for me, it's something that I'm in the midst of learning that I need like more reminding of, if you will, is just like taking care of myself, which I can tie to what we just talked about. For me, a part of taking care of myself is making sure that I have that balance. I use the word balance lightly because some people say that it's impossible to have work-life balance. Like I think balance is a term that we use that is important to use daily. Try to have a daily balance. In other words, I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but all I'm getting at is it's important
Hmm.
to take care of myself. I have to make sure I am intentionally getting outdoors time. Because if not, and even enough socializing time with other people, making enough phone calls, like, because if I don't do those things, I get in my head too much, and that's not good for my mental health, and that's not good for my creativity. And so that's something I'm learning. I'm currently learning about self-care and creating certain boundaries for myself.
Sure. Good. Good. I think it's
Yeah.
great. Creating and knowing the things that you need.
Yeah, being aware of yeah, what we need and taking action on those things.
I'd say action is probably the biggest part of it, because if you don't, you may know it, but if you don't take action on it, then you're not helping yourself.
Right. Yeah. So, I guess that's going to be it for today's episode. Thanks for joining the Ross Brothers podcast. If you're out of coffee, go get you another cup of coffee. Enjoy the rest of your day. Got any
Yeah.
last words? Any last words for the viewers? Anything else you want to share? What's your social media handle, Instagram handle?
Mid-state welding. Simple as that.
Cool.
Always, my advice for today is always be open to opportunities.
Open-minded
Yeah.
to opportunities. Be on the lookout for opportunities. Right on. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me again today for a conversation. I hope these conversations will flow more the more Rodney and I do this. So, yeah, thanks for being here with us today. If you made it to the end, we greatly appreciate it. And we hope you'll join us for our next podcast. We're going to try to post one every other Friday here on the YouTube channel for now. And yeah, looking forward to working more with Rodney in the future. Wanted to remind a couple announcements here at the end. I wanted to remind those of you that are interested in the branch workshop. We've got one coming up, or no, I guess that's the deadline. So we just closed enrollment registration for the March 8th and 9th workshop.
However, if you're listening right now and you have missed out on any emails that we've sent out or videos that we've posted about the branch workshop and the deadlines and all this stuff, and maybe this is the first time you're hearing about the branch workshop and the sign up deadline, stay tuned to the email list because depending on whether we fill the seats or not, as the time of the recording of this podcast, I don't know if all the seats will be filled or not because this podcast is going up on the 7th and the deadline was on the 4th. So all that to say is if the seats don't get filled, we're going to send out a couple of emails with some special deals to try to fill those last seats. The reason that we try to, that way those of you that maybe didn't hear about it still have a chance to join, especially if all the seats aren't filled, right? The reason we set the sign up deadline 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time is to try to plan as best as possible so I know how much pipe to get, and just so I can plan other little things. I'm trying to make each workshop better and better, and so if I know how many people are going to be there, that helps me plan better. So that's why we close enrollment. But if you're still interested in joining the workshop, make sure and go to arosswelding.school and get on the email list so you get any notifications that we send out about the branch workshop or anything else. Also, make sure and check your promotions folder and your spam folder in your email because sometimes the emails get sent to those folders. So hope to see you there.
But our next workshop is potentially going to be up in South Dakota at Rodney's shop, potentially. So it'll be beginning of May sometime. So is what I'm thinking. So I just wanted to share that for those of you that may not have known. Next branch workshop, and Rodney and I have also been talking about doing workshops together, like other types of workshops there in Spearfish at Rodney's shop. So, and then also traveling workshops that may be a little further down the road whenever we start to delegate things more, so to where we can actually have the bandwidth to do that. But yeah, so just wanted to mention the in-person workshops for those of you that might be interested in taking an in-person welding workshop, whatever that looks like, learn how to build stairs, decks, pipeline workshops. The options are literally endless, but uh, you know, shared as in me and Rodney both being there to be involved in the workshop and help us both helping. So I think that's all the announcement I got for now. And like I said, thanks for joining me again for today's podcast.
Yeah. I enjoy it and appreciate the great conversation also with the opportunity.
Yeah, and as I always say, learn something every day. And what Rodney, I don't know if this is your coined phrase or not, but Rodney always says, there's always a way. In other words, if you feel stumped, just remember Rodney Ross, there's always a way. Let his voice say it. Let his voice say it in your head. There's always a way.
There's always a way.
It's
There's
helped. It's
always
helped.
a way.
It's helped me. It's something I need to hear, especially right now in my life. And so I'm grateful for Rodney's saying there's always a way. You know what I mean? Just believe in yourself. Know that there's plenty of resources out there. It's just a matter of owning it's a matter of us taking action on those ideas and knowing that like there is a way, but we just have to take the step. So learn something every day and there's always a way. We'll catch you in the next video or the next podcast episode. We'll catch y'all later. Much love.